So, refresh my memory. You were 20 years old in the service. Which branch of the service were you in?
Air Force. Yeah, and I made up my mind. Well, even before then, when I was in high school, I I worked in a filling station in Arlington, and a bunch of carpenters. They were all Swedish from up where Tom grew up in that neighborhood. And every weekend they'd take off and go to New Hampshire, and they went to this one lake, and it happened to be Balch Lake, but I didn't know where it was. And they'd go up and build camps. And I'd hear these stories and so forth, but I never even knew where it was. But when I went in the service, I just made up my mind I wanted to own, in the future, I'd like to have a camp. I realized I couldn't buy one. I wanted to buy some land and build something, but I didn't know anything about building. I didn't even know which side of the hammer to use. But I was determined, and when I got out of the service, I started looking for water frontage in New Hampshire and Maine. Went down to the Cape one weekend, and that did it for me. I couldn't see. Here I was only 25, 26 years old. I couldn't visualize commuting to the Cape every weekend at a 26 years old. I mean, what would it be like in 20 or 30 years? You never realize that how long you're going to live anyway. But so we started looking in New Hampshire, and my buddy Walter Colby, I convinced him to start looking with me. But he never looked. I did all the looking, and I found Lake Balch, and it so happened it was the same lake that these carpenters were building 6 and 7 years ago. But they were building in the section of where White House is, the general store over there. So when I started looking in Balch Lake, I went to the White House part. And Tom and Sue, of course, everybody knows where White House Road is and where the marina is, and that's. So we were looking. I was looking at that area, and Walter was with me, and Lillian and Nancy. We went up in the. Walter and I called White House. He was an old man, and we went and tried to get in touch with him. But you're dealing with people in New Hampshire and Maine. They're altogether different than the people in Massachusetts. You move at their pace. And we wanted to see some land that White House owned. So we said we'd like to look at some land in White Houses. And he couldn't be bothered. He said, see me in the spring. Well, now my juices are really flowing. I wanted to see. So in the middle of this winter, Nancy and Walter and Lillian and myself, we went up. We pulled into Rock. We didn't even know how to get to White House, but we pulled into Rochester Center. You know where the Common is?
Yep.
I put my brakes on and slid right into the car in front of me and smashed up the car. As it turns out, if you know Somerville at all, down in Leechmere, there used to be a used car lot by the name of John's.
Okay.
And he's the guy I ran into. Anyway, we continued on. We went up the lake, and we went into White Houses. Of course, the roads were never plowed in the wintertime. So you've been in the White House Road, right?
Yeah.
That's a long road to walk in all the way out to the White House landing. We get all the way in there. None of us had boots or anything else. The snow was this deep. It was up to my knees. And she's never even heard this story. So we get all the way in there, and we didn't know what we were looking at. We did find in the fall, we found this one lot. It was for sale. and in a White House, and it had a steep slope like that, and it was 300-foot frontage.
Yeah. Wow.
And about 200-foot depth, and I liked it, so we decided we're going to buy it. I forget what the price was. Might have been $700 for the whole thing. Anyway, so White House said, "See me in the spring." Well, anyway, we went up and we looked at it, and on the way back out, Nancy lost her shoes in the snow. You're never going to find her. He had to carry her out. And so anyway, we went back in the spring, and White House had jacked the price up. Instead of 300-foot frontage, he cut it up into 150-foot frontage, and they were $700 a piece. I don't blame him. And this is where Francis used to do. In this January 1st, you jack all the prices up.
Interesting.
And once all the good lots are gone,
They come back down.
the bad lots are that price now.
Yeah, right.
And so forth. So anyway, so we gave up on that, and I was working in this electrical supply place in Watertown, and the guy was buying too much material for renovating, but not enough to build a house. And I said, "What are you doing with this?" And he says, "I own a piece of property up in Wakefield, New Hampshire," and he said, "Oh, on the lake by the name of Balch Pond." So that's when we went up, and I asked him if there was any more property, and he said, "Yeah, Doc Francis owns it." So we ended up buying it, and should have bought more.
Yeah, because what was the deal? What could you have done?
Well, Lonnie and I went up and we saw the property, and we said, "We'll think about it, and we'll come." We went up with my mother and father. I guess that was it. They were with me. That's not true at all. We went up with Walter and Nancy, and you couldn't come across. You had to go over to the big house,
Yeah.
and we came across by boat. And Brad swam across. Of course, Brad lived where the campgrounds are now.
Right.
And that house burnt twice.
Where the house that burnt down.
Twice. 2 different houses burnt from the same location. But anyway,
I thought it was 3 times.
anyway, the price was $700. No, we went to look at the other side. The other side, Nancy and Walter weren't with us. Lillian, my mother and father, came up, and we were going to buy where LeBlanc owns. On the other side, you know, where the road comes out,
Like across from us?
where Ross's camps were, on the big side.
Okay.
The road comes from our house, from where McNair owns. That road
Yeah.
right there that cuts
yeah,
through. There's a right-of-way right after that. And on the right-hand side, the camp is yellow. It's been yellow since 1957. Well, we were going to buy that lot. It was nice and level, and had that little inlet there.
Yep.
And I said, "This is beautiful." And the price was $500. And I said, "Okay, I'll come back next week." So we went back next week, and the price went up. But no, I'm sorry, it did not go up. It was sold. A guy bought that lot and 5 back lots. And Francis explained to us at that time, you buy the front lot, you put $50 down, and put $50 down on each back lot. You don't pay on any of them until this one's paid for. In the meantime, you could have sold all those because you've already got the down deposit and you're committed to that sale. I mean, you could have sold them, but you'd have to pay them off. And so in the meantime, my father says, "You don't want to buy it. You don't know this guy because you're dealing with an out-of-stater." And he's given me all he thought was the right
Wise
answers
advice, yes.
from experience or whatever. And anyway, so I went up with Walter, and we started looking, and I decided I wanted to buy this lot. He bought the one beside me. The road went all the way in Timberley Road,
Yep.
and it came up as far as Walter's driveway, and it ended. And so to get in or out, then you had to turn around and go up Smith's Hill and come out
I
that
didn't
way.
realize that.
And the first year you couldn't do anything because they were making the road. Well, it wasn't far from a road because it was just bulldozed and all loose sands, and you get stuck every time you went in. And Maine wasn't built, and neither was any of the side roads or down to Mag. That was nothing.
Yeah.
This was it. And there was no electricity in there or anything naturally, but I don't know. But I wanted something for my family and my grandchildren and their children. I figured that was my dream. I just wish I had bought more. But
You can't know the future.
no. Well, at that time, even all the camps opposite, they're the first camps in there.
Yeah.
And this woman, my father was right. We shouldn't have bought, because it turned out, when I went to register it in the Registry of Deeds in New Hampshire, I hired a lawyer who I didn't know, and I sent him my paperwork. His name was Smith in Ossipee, and he was going to register the deeds and send them back. A couple of weeks later, he sent me a registered letter in writing. Do not cut down any trees. You're liable for any tree you cut down because you do not own the land. Francis does not own the land. It owns by this woman, I forgot her name, but she owned the whole cove. And Horn was her name. And if you want to, I can get you a clear title for this land. This is a lawyer. Who I hired.
Right.
I can get you a clear title from Mrs. Horn if you pay her $700, which was what I paid. $750 I paid for the land. You pay her $750. I can get you a clear title from her. This was all in writing. So I told my father, and see, didn't I tell you? Well, in the meantime, Greeno further on down, up at the hill, he was a great guy. And he started building, and other people were building. And of course, they all got this notice too. Oh, I don't know if they did or not.
Yeah.
No, I can't say that.
Yeah.
As it turned out, this lawyer was working for her too, which you can't do that. But anyway, as years went on, we established an association. I was just part of it. I didn't have anything to do with it. But we worked in the road committee. Every year we'd work on the road, doing all the road work on a Sunday or Saturday as a group. And I can't think of the guy's name behind Mag. With an M.
McNair?
No.
They have a house down there too, though, don't they?
Yes, next to Mag.
Next to Mag. Yeah.
Anyway, he was on the road committee, and he found a lawyer. If we became a group, and we went through this lawyer, he'd get us a clear title.
So had you started work yet?
Hmm?
Had you started work on the house yet?
Oh yeah. The camp was up. So anyway, but this was called a quitclaim deed. Is what we got from Francis.
Yeah.
But the quitclaim deed, all of a sudden now people were building camps and they were selling them, and the people who were buying them wanted to go through a bank. Well, the bank won't touch a quitclaim deed. It's a cloud. It's not a clear title. So this man, I can't. And anyway, he says he found a lawyer as a group. We spent $50 each. He can get us a clear title. Everybody signed up for it except Smith. He refused. So we hired the lawyer, and he got us a clear title, which now you can sell it, and it's a good title.
Yeah.
Smiths still don't have a clear title.
Really?
Well, maybe they hired a lawyer since then, but because the original title was a cloudy title. Yeah. So anyway,
that's interesting.
We bought this woman off. She couldn't take us to court to sue us because she did own it.
Yeah.
Part of it. As it turned out, many years ago, it was owned by this farmer, and he had 2 sons, and he had a fight with one son. He gave the land, when I die, it's going to be yours. And maybe 2 or 3 years later, he had a fight with him and told the other son, it's going to be yours. So when he died, both sons were paying taxes on the same piece of land. And so it went like this. Mm-hmm. And so this was all woodland. So this part over here, a lumber company owned it. They bought it, and which is the land we own, yeah. And they timbered it. And when they were done with it in 1952, they sold it to the back taxes, gave it back to the town of Wakefield, New Hampshire. Huh. And Francis bought it, all of it, 1.5 miles of water frontage, all the way over to Billy Mills, is beyond, for, what did I say, $10,000 for the whole thing.
Like the whole lake?
Yes. And he developed it. That's where it all started.
No, I thought you said you could have bought like the waterfront all the way down too, all the way down to like McDonald's, yeah. Right?
The Mags, the road wasn't even built, and then when they finally did build the road down there, I convinced Mag to buy.
Yep.
And Mag bought. I don't know what he paid. He probably $900 for his lot.
Yeah.
Because the prices have gone up now, and every one of it. What I liked about it is no one's trying to outdo one another. Everybody was scratching, and everybody,
came in at the ground level together.
Now, and I didn't. When we went to build like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. Now it came to Lillian and I and Uncle Joe Rapper would go up on a Saturday and we'd buy 2 bags of cement and put them in the car, and we'd go up and mix the cement and put them in a hole and mix the cement and mix the forms. We didn't know how to do any of this, and we used the dirt out of the ground for the sand, and we'd pack up and come home the same day. And what else?
When did you buy the backlots? Did you buy one of them? I mean, did you buy both of them? Or did Vav buy the other one?
I wanted to buy a backlot for Susan. So, Papa, Lillian's father, he loved it up there. Now, Vav didn't care for it that much, but she went along with it because he was her husband, and, naturally she liked being there with us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't her bag. But anyway, he loved it up there. He wanted to build, and he was ready to retire. He was going to retire, say, 2 years, and he didn't make any money. He was a tool and die man, worked for a small machine shop like what Carl had, and he was a machinist. He was a tool and die man.
I don't think I ever knew that.
A tool and die man, he makes the tools to manufacture what you're going to build.
Right.
And he makes the machinery to produce.
For the forms, yeah.
To make this piece of equipment. And Walter was a tool and die. I don't think he had the title, but Walter was that sort.
Same type of thing.
But anything Walter touched turned to gold anyway, because he was just a talented individual,
Yeah.
and anybody that knew him would say the same thing. But anyway, Lillian's father probably, even when he retired, I bet he didn't make $100 a week. So
Yeah.
whatever he made, they had to live on. And here he wanted to build a place up there. And anyway, everybody at work told him he was crazy, which really he probably was, because when you retire, you're going to need whatever money you have. You don't need other toys. So anyway, and I convinced him. I don't think Lillian was that keen on it, but I convinced him to build a frame on our property. And I found him a deal. He bought an Army surplus hospital tent, and they come in 3 different sections. And this was the middle section, and the sucker was, I want to say, 15 feet by 15 feet by 15 feet, and it goes up to a peak. And he screened in the 2 sides. He screened in the roadside. He built it where the fence is now.
Yeah.
He built it coming toward the camp, and the peak, it went up to a peak, and it was 15 by 15. It was bigger than the bunkhouse.
Than the actual house. Yeah.
The bunkhouse.
Yeah. And
it was screened in on the back, and screened in on the front, facing the lake, with a screen door. And in the fall, and we made a frame, all 2x4s, and framed it all up. And in the fall, it took 4 people to take just the canvas off, and it was a heavy sucker. And it stunk because it was treated, so waterproofed. Oh my God, it was heavy. It was heavy canvas. Anyway, so they lived in that for a couple of years. And they had a double bed in there. They had a dresser, a table, chairs, and they were up there all summer long. And then he decided he wanted to build. So I convinced him, because Lillian wanted him out of there.
Off.
Enough's enough. We couldn't even blow our nose without them being right there. So I convinced him, well, let's buy the 2 back lots. So we bought them, and we had Francis in the deal. We had him level them off.
Yeah.
I mean, before, they were both a gully.
Oh, really?
So he cut off both tops of the roads on both sides and filled it in. Now, you saw how much we filled in just on the back lots.
Yeah.
I mean, but that was, you can imagine how deep it was before.
Right.
And so anyway, we paid $700 a piece for them, and we put $50 down on each one, and we paid off we both.
Yeah.
I don't know what the payment was, maybe $50 a week or a month.
Whatever it was, yeah.
And so it might have been 100, but we both paid 50-50. We paid off his, and then in the meantime, the other one, we're not even paying taxes on it. And
That's unbelievable.
Francis is holding the mortgage.
Why did they think that was a good idea? They just wanted people to be able to have the land?
Doc Francis was a great guy.
Yeah.
He came on strong. But when we finally went to buy the land, first, let me back up. When we finally went to buy the land, we had been up there twice now.
Yeah.
And we went over by boat, and we looked at the land, and for me, it was 3 weeks, because I missed out on the one.
Right. Around the corner.
So now we're on this one, and I'll think about it. And so we went back over to Francis. He lived in Pine Street in Malden. We went over to his house. God. Have you ever been in the big house? Oh my God. Never been cleaned out, never been swept, nothing's ever been dusted, nothing. And this is Doc Francis now. He was a dentist in Malden. And I went over there, I'm off my subject, but it's all interesting. I went to paying one of my mortgage payments at the dentist office in Malden on Main Street, and he was upstairs. I go upstairs, and I went in there, And geez, you think I was a lost friend. Oh, he was glad to see me. Fingernails, mud inside his fingernails. Now he's a dentist. He's going, ew. And his house was as bad. We went in. I went in to make a payment in his house, and God, cobwebs are hanging off all the chandelier. I mean, beautiful, beautiful, old
Yeah.
house, an expensive house
Yeah.
near Main Street, but filth. Not not garbage, just dirt. And the big house is the same way. In the big house, their fireplace got a fireplace in there, covers the whole wall. It's all made out of mica.
Wow.
You know, New Hampshire's
Yeah.
loaded with mica, and the stone goes all the way up to through the second floor, up through the roof, and it's all made out of this mica.
Wow.
And massive, beautiful, beautiful. All the hardwood floors. And they used to go up there in the wintertime, and on New Year's, they'd have horse racing on the lake. In what do you call them? Sherry's?
Oh, yeah.
Surrey horse racing. And he told me about it. But another thing, Doc Francis' wife. Now, when he retired, he moved up there, and he got too old to. They had heat in the big house, but they were living at Brad's house, that one that on the campground that burned.
Yeah.
They were living there. His wife was in a wheelchair, and as soon as spring came by, they'd wheel her in the. No, Brad told me this. Brad told us this story. Now, you wouldn't tell this story if it wasn't the truth. In the spring, they'd wheel his mother out on a good day and wheel her into the lake to take a bath. Because all winter she hadn't had her bath. And what comes around, when Brad became an old man, you've heard stories about Brad anyway.
Yeah.
Bad stories.
Yeah.
And he cut himself with a chainsaw, and he was in prison quite a few years. And he came out, he looked like Frankenstein. Didn't he become an invalid? And didn't Felton, who lives there now, didn't he have to wheel him out into the lake? The same thing in the spring. Now, your father and I and Robin went over to try to negotiate a deal with him on the back lots, on the right-of-ways to turn over to the association. This is when Robin was president.
Was in it, yes.
And so, because I've known Felton since he was 15,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't have any part of Robin or any part of giving anything away, because he still owns all the right-of-ways. Well, anyway,
Put in a dock and
when
stuff.
Greno's wife died, his daughter, she never liked it up there, but she only went there because she was more or less forced to. And he wanted to open up the right-of-way. And he went over and talked to Felton, and he says, I want to open up the right-of-way. And years ago, you could do anything you wanted. But the environmentalists,
Put a stop to that.
Right. So Felton said, no, you can't do it. He says, well, I want to put a road. And Felton says, I'm liable. I won't let you do it. He says, the only way I would let you do it if you zigzagged it back and forth going down
So
the
it
right
doesn't-
of way.
So it doesn't look like a road.
No. So the washout.
Oh, I see.
So in case it rains, a heavy drench, all that's going to go in the lake.
Right.
And pollution or whatever. So Francis was he's protecting himself. He's got to. But
Yeah.
any other questions?
Not that I can think of. How old was Mom when you bought the land?
I bought it long before we got married. I bought it in '57.
But you didn't start building until later.
We started building before we got married. We would go up in a weekend. No, just the foundations. And the day we got married, I wanted to leave the reception. I wanted to leave the wedding right then and there because Walter came into the wedding. Nancy didn't show up. She never came. I don't think Nancy was in the hospital with David. And Walter said, Smith's house just collapsed. So Greeno, the one I like, John Greeno, this is Joe Greeno next to Walter, but John Greeno was walking, as everybody used to do up there, they'd go for a walk. And he saw Smith, and he was building his piers out of coffee cans. His piers. In the front of his camp, facing the lake, he had 3 coffee cans as, that's his footing. And one there, one in the middle, and one at the corner. And Greeno said, you can't do that. It won't support it. Mind your own goddamn business. This is my house. Get out of here. Okay. So now Smith built the camp. And what took place, that one in the middle of the span here kicked out. And the roof went caved in. And it's a wonder the whole thing just didn't fall in because now everything. So what he did, he worked for Western Electric in Andover. And he got a hold of guy cable, you know, that holds up the telephone poles.
Yep.
And with a come along, and he put on this plate up here, and on that plate over there, he come along them and brought the house back up. And he never really did anything different with the foundation. And the whole upstairs is all guy wired cables holding the building together. Even when they jacked the house up, now because we were up there when they jacked it up, and that was amazing. They had the whole house jacked up 4 feet, or actually 6 feet.
Probably more than that. Yeah.
6 feet in less than an hour. The whole house was up, and it's going to collapse. It's bound to collapse, and it didn't. So we got married, and we started building that summer.
For you?
Lillian's mother and father, Auntie Rose and Joe, and 2 rapper boys. They were kids. They'd come up, and we. In the meantime, I'd never met the Springles. They were at our wedding. Lillian worked with Carl. He was a engineer and a computer expert, and this is before computers. Well, he worked for Remington Rand, but Lillian worked at First National Warehouses, which is where Assembly Square is in Malden. That used to be the Ford manufacturing company. They built Fords there. And after I went through that plant and when I was in high school, and after Ford moved out, that became Assembly Square. And after they moved out, that became First National, their headquarters. And Lillian worked there along with all of Lillian's friends. They all went to school together, and they all went to work. Nancy worked there too, Colby. And so Lillian worked in, I don't know what you'd call it, and they had made punch cards, and that would put up all the orders for all the stores. And it was like an IBM card with all punches out, and that was reordering the stock for the stores. And Carl, right out of college, they were from New Jersey, which real estate was very cheap, and they moved up to Boston, and God, they couldn't find anything, and the cheapest houses they could find was in North Reading, and it was outrageous for him. The house cost $11,000, and he's, for that kind of money in New Jersey, South Jersey, you probably own half the town.
Yes.
I mean, that's what he came from. It was a farm community, and the computer, you opened the door and walked into it. It was a whole room.
Yeah.
The computer, and Lillian took to a fascination for these for the punch cards in the operation, and she still worked on the punch cards, but he more or less took her under his wing, and he and 3 other Remington Rand employees, their job was First National Stores, and they had Logan Airport. The whole of Logan Airport. And this is back in the late 50s, early 60s. Computers were just coming out.
Yeah.
And when it went down, major problems.
Huge problems, yeah.
And the longer he stayed with Remington Rand, it became no more troubles. They just you corrected the problems, and he could see the handwriting on the wall, and he said, "I got to get out of this profession." And he was, I guess, I don't know if he was mechanical. I guess he was electrical engineer, basically. And he went to work in California, and the company he was working for, he was getting paid every week, and they were sitting around doing nothing. They were buying stocks on paper, just to pass time. And he finally said, "Hey, this is crazy," and he gave up that, and he opened up a general store in New Jersey.
Huh.
But so anyway, this is where I'm. At our wedding, he kept asking Lillian. She said, "We're going to build a camp. We're going to build a camp." He said, "Well, gee, I'm very interested. Where is it?" She says, "Up in New Hampshire." And this is right up his alley in the country. And he says, "Do you mind could I come up and help?" That's all I need to hear.
Right.
And I never met him. And I said, and so we became very, 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 very close. In fact, some of our old pictures of Up the Lake, you play hell trying to find out which one is who, me or him.
I know, we've played that game. Because we've watched some of the films. There's some films of when you guys were building it, and Uncle Joe is there a lot. But yeah, you look at them, because you dress the same, you have the same build, and your hair looks the same.
And so I worked in the filling station. I thought I was helping myself out by working a second job in a filling station. And he'd go up on weekends with Lillian's father, and I'd be working in the filling station while they were up there working. But I was making money to pay for the material.
Yeah.
And you heard the story about when I wasn't there. I was back in Massachusetts. They went up for a week, and Lillian went up with her mother and father and the Springles, and they were living in the bunkhouse.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. We used to spend, there's a retired school teacher, where the church is up.
Coming right onto 153.
Yes, and there was this like a schoolhouse,
Yeah.
a big old white building, and the people's name was Saunders, and she was a retired teacher, and so was her husband, and they rented out rooms.
Yeah.
And you'd get your breakfast there too. It was $2 a night.
Bed and breakfast. I remember Mimi telling us that. Yeah.
And so they were staying there, and Lillian's mother and father were too. But they were building the camp, and rainy days.
No.
They were living in Walter's bunkhouse, and
I do.
it was pouring rain, and Eric has claustrophobia inside the bunkhouse with all these people. I'm glad I was in Massachusetts. And he was paranoid anybody went in the lake.
Eric was?
Oh, yeah. Anybody went near the water, it's Carl's fault. Anybody went near the water, he'd yell and scream and cry, and oh my God, you got to get out of the water. because Carl forced him and threw him in the water and forced him to go in, go swimming, and it just
Ruined it.
ruined it.
Yeah.
Sam was fine, but Eric, no.
So how long did it take you to build the house?
Oh, so the first year we built it all summer long, and it was in November, and we still were putting shingles on the roof, and we had to heat them up because it was so cold, and we had a potbelly stove outside, and we'd heat up the potbelly stove and heat the shingles on the potbelly stove to cut them, and then it was snowing, and we finally got the whole roof done, and it was snowing, and that was the last weekend, but it was probably the end of November, I'd say.
1960, 1961.
1960. Now all we've done, we've built a whole shell and framed it in. There's no rooms inside, just partitions. And for partitions, we had the 2x4s, and we were staying there. We didn't stay there because there was no water. We had a pitcher pump, and we had a ladder you had to climb up to get in the door. And so the first year we got it all enclosed and everything else with Anderson windows, Anderson door, and all the shingles and everything on, and it cost $1,000 for everything. Now, when I went to build it, I didn't know what I was. Oh, you've heard the name Upcountry.
Yes. Upcountry.
The daughter.
Auntie, right?
Yeah, they lived in South Boston. No one liked the daughter's husband. He was a teacher in Tewksbury, Tewksbury, and a know-it-all. No one could stand him. He was just irritates everybody, and so I was determined to build this building. We had all the piers done, right? I didn't know what I was doing. So I approached a couple of people I knew who were drafts people, and they didn't want to touch it. He said, "I'll do it. I'll have my students do it. It'll be a good project for them." And he gave me the drawing, and it was just a drawing. It had no dimensions or anything. So when Carl came up and we were going to start building, I went to Molten Lumber. I told him the building's going to be 24 by 24, and I told him the windows we wanted and the doors and so forth. And he says, "I'll bring all the material to you in stages as you use it." And before this, okay. From 1957 on to 1960, we would go up there on just day trips. And I wanted to build a picnic table. Because I figured, okay, the rappers and Lily's mother and father and all these people, I need a 12-foot table. And I wanted it 4 feet wide. And with a bench, remember how big. So we don't. You know where Molten Lumber is?
No.
In
Tell me and I'll know.
In Maine, in Newfield Road. Anyway, the original plant. There's a lake there, and you cross over a brook, and there's a couple of old buildings, and there's a lake right there, and they'd float the logs in, and take them right in and cut them. So
wow.
he says, "We have no lumber for the size you want." Wait a minute! They brought a log out of the lake.
Will this work?
And they brought it out, and they sawed it right in front of me. And now I had a 1953 Mercury Monterey hardtop, and I only had, I don't know, $12 in my pocket, and the bill came to like $25. And he says, "Don't worry about it. We'll bill you." I says, "How do you don't even know me?"
Right.
He says, "Yes, I do. You told me you owned lot 125, And he says, I'll own you a lot. Don't worry about it. So I dragged it all home to Arlington. No, you remember my mother's two-family house?
I've seen pictures of it. I don't remember it.
Well, to go down cellar, they had like a half door. I built this 12-foot table down the cellar. Now, after I build it, I have to take it apart to get it out. I did it on purpose. At least I could do it. And then now how to get it up the lake? I'm going to have to build a trailer. So I ended up, I built this. Did you ever see my trailer I had?
Yeah.
It was all made out of steel. I built the sucker. I didn't know what I was doing, and I built that. And
so you knew what you were doing. You just didn't.
Nobody
ever taught you how to do it.
We got it up there. We got it. Oh, I built that in the cellar too, because it took all winter to build it.
Yeah.
And anyway, Moulton said the material costs $1,000 for what you want. For $2,000, we'll do it. We'll build the material, double the price, and that's it. Instead, we did it, and so the first year, we didn't live in it. So the second year, we go up Memorial Day, the rappers and all of us. We go in the camp. It's cold at night. We had curtains separating the bedrooms in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And we had Penny, our dog. And Susan, she was probably 4 months old. No, 2 months old. We just had mattresses on the floor. And so we did what we did that day. I guess no, we just went up and we had we went up not Friday night but Saturday morning, and we did what we did, and we probably had steak at night. But the midgies, I took the barbecue in the house and set it up in the living room, and we had the briquettes, and we had the fire going. Of course, there's no lights or anything, so we ate our supper, and nothing to do because there's no lights. We all went to bed. Remember now, there's no walls, no ceilings, no nothing. About 2 a.m, Penny started barking. Now there's all the rappers, Lillian's mother and father, me and Lillian and Susan. Penny started barking, and Lillian got up, and she fell flat in her face. The charcoal grill had eaten up all the oxygen in the camp, and the only thing that protected us was so much openness of it, and the outside wasn't really sealed, even though the doors and everything, because the floors were, it was just, and she crawled with Susan. I got up. The charcoal's still hot. I grabbed a hold of it with my bare hands, opened the door, and threw it outside, and opened the doors. If that dog hadn't barked, all gone. And this happens more frequent than people realize, especially in the hunting season and so forth. Campers, and because some of the campers aren't properly ventilated.
Yeah.
And who knew? You're stupid. You're just a stupid person. You don't realize what you're doing.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So it took 2 years to build the house? I don't mean completely finished, but in terms of you've got walls set up.
Oh, no. Because now we're putting in plumbing, and now I'm doing electrical. And I only did it without any mortgage or anything else. And besides that, I wasn't making anything in the phone company. When we got married, I was only making $45 a week, and I bought a two-family house. The mortgage in the two-family house was $150 a week. My salary is $44 a week. you can't afford it. And in the meantime, I'm building a camp.
So how did you swing it?
You just do what you have to do. Scrounge and save, and I wheeled and dealed on deals, and determination.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Look at these foreigners that come in here. They have nothing, and all of a sudden they own a business, and they have people working for them, and all it is determination. And I just had, I don't know, I not a brilliant person at all, but I just knew I wanted to do this for my family.
So what year did you buy the lot?
57. Yep.
And you'd go up here and there, and then really started construction of the foundation about 1960?
No, the year before.
Okay.
But that would only be like on Saturday.
Right.
You come home the same day. I don't know how the building ever became level.
Still standing. It's not level anymore.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
the thing is, there was never a cellar.
Yeah.
And the right rear corner, say my bedroom now, that pier only went in the ground about this much. And because the rest was all dirt,
Right.
right? And even on your side, that pier went in the ground. You go down the cellar, you can see a stain on the pier. That's the dirt we dug out,
Wow.
and that's supposed to be underground.
Wow. Well. Oh well.
So how long did it take before the house had plumbing and electricity? Just kind of a modern...
Yeah, we had plumbing the next year. No toilet. We had an outhouse for a few years.
Where was the outhouse?
Up where the wall is now.
Next to Smith's?
Yeah, but close to the ground, where the short part is.
Yeah.
That's where the outhouse was, on that little knoll there.
Yeah.
We had electricity the second year because there was no electricity in there. No one had electricity. They had to bring it across from Francis.
I think you bought the
Then finally, after it got built, where building mill zones and so forth, and MAG, they brought electricity down the road. But Francis bought all that land for back taxes, but he had no access to get in there. That road that we used to come down the hill, is owned by the farm next door on the right. I'm going back at that time. That was the Farr farm, and they owned the road. And and he made a deal with them. He leased it off them for X amount of years. And hey, get here. Once a year, I'm talking from 1957, probably up until 1970 or 76. Once a year, one day a year, put a chain across it. You can't get in it. That gives, in other words, if it's accessible for 7 years in a row, that land's yours. I don't care who owns it, it's yours. So by putting a gate across it, that is giving them title. They never gave him title to it.
Interesting.
So, and this is normal up in New Hampshire and Maine, and probably even till this day. You'll see a chain going across something. That's probably what it is.
Interesting.
Somebody has the right use of that road, but once a year they'll put the chain on and lock it.
Huh.
So anyway, he bought all this land, and this is Doc Francis. He was a smart man, and Brad was just a slouch. And Brad was a terrible person. No other way to, I'm being polite saying that. And Brad, Doc Francis had two roads. That road, and in where the airport is, there's another road that goes up on the other side of Far. So going on in years, that airport, you know what I'm talking about. Brad decided he was going to build a campground there. And he got a hold of a couple of used car dealers in Malden and a bank in Malden to give him money to develop this. And all winter long, he would be in there developing this campground. And with a stipulation in his mind, it's never going to be complete. He built a massive septic system. Probably the septic tank is bigger than this whole living room here. Massive. I mean, he did this. He was a brilliant person. He screwed everybody he had any dealings with.
Yes.
He took all their money, and on paper, he built this. He had about 4 different big buildings in there, all half completed on purpose. And then he declared bankruptcy. So they came in, and the bank and the whoever, they had an auction, and they're going to auction this off. He could care less, because he's going to end up with it anyway. Even after it's auctioned, he's going to end up with it in his mind. So they came in, they auctioned the property off, and it sold. It was cheap money, it wasn't much, maybe $15,000 for the whole thing.
Buildings and everything.
Yes. And Francis said, "Okay, you're the owner. How do you think you're going to get in there?" "I'm going to drive down the road." "No, you're not. It's not your road. That doesn't go with the property." "I'll come down the other road then." "No, you won't. It's not part of the deal." They lost their money. I can't think of them. I want to say White House, but that's not it. Morehouse. Way down the end of Billy Mills's road, there's a nice camp with a nice lawn coming all the way down to the water. He owns that airport. He bought it. I don't know how, Francis was planning on having his girlfriend, who was an Indian, he was going to have her buy it as a straw. But the bank got wind of it, and they didn't sell it to her. But he was a mean guy. But River Beach is a cove right at the over there in that cove there. It's a piece of land, nice piece of land. It came right down, nice, sandy into the water. And Francis sold it to a person, and so the person bought it and so forth. And then after the person bought it, Francis went in there and he built a building on top of it. On top of the land he just sold to this guy, and he was going to open up a general store there. Stupid. Anyway, this Billy Mills, he owns on Island Road. You know, that's in Maine of our property. And Francis was bulldozing over there and opening up the right-of-way and opening up the back lots. And you're not supposed to cut trees within 100 feet of the shore. So Billy Mills reported it to the Water Commission and a couple of the other associations. And one Friday night, Francis came over and pounded on this door, and he said, "You know, people out up here in the wintertime, and when they're not here, a lot of strange things happen, and people's properties are known to burn to the ground." This is the type of person he was.
Right, just outright threaten.
Yep. But,
wow. What's your favorite memory up there? Do you have one specific memory that you cherish?
Not really. They all run together. I miss 4th of July fireworks and Labor Day fireworks across the lake, and to me, really, it would always bring tears to my eyes. In my mind, it's heaven. It's good. In my mind, there's nothing like that setting. But and I like the whole area in New Hampshire because no one tries to outdo one another. They take you for what you are and take nature the way it should be. I'm so pleased that Salmonville has never changed.
No, it hasn't.
And that's from the time I started going there. Sure, your mother can remember when the Sarah's was there, a general store that burned to the ground suspiciously by the owner. And Wakefield has not changed a bit.
Yeah.
And I feel lucked out buying that.
Yeah.
It's Stump Pond. The person who owned that, his father, Russell Chick, and they were same as the Francises. They bought the land dirt cheap, and the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, the whole area. You either like country. I hate cities. I hate Massachusetts. I love that.
Yeah.
And I miss it.
So what'd you think of the fireworks last night?
I thought they were the best we've had. I think they're the best I've ever seen here, really.